The history of the Allegheny National Forest dates back to really pre-European settlement, when the indigenous tribes roamed the landscape. They were foragers and hunters. So in order to forage, they burnt parts of the forest so they could get early successional forest and berries, and they hunted to make better habitat for the wildlife. The advent of the European settlement, this forest was very important to the development of our cities, and it was clear-cut between 1880 and 1920. This forest was completely clear-cut in that time period, and that was the reason that the National Forest was established, the Allegheny, in 1923. Since then, the Allegheny National Forest has been managed for multiple use. Primarily, it was to provide clean water, recreation, timber to society for generations. This region is very unique in the world. The Allegheny Plateau has provided services and goods to the world since it's been inhabited by European settlement. The timber was used primarily to build the cities downstream. They floated the timber down the rivers, the Allegheny, the Susquehanna. And it's one of the reasons why the Williamsport was known as the lumber capital of the world. But as the timber was harvested, think of that time period from 1880 to 1920. That's during the industrial boom, the Industrial Revolution. So there was a need for timber. Originally it was to build the cities and for masts of wooden ships, because the white pine that grew here was tall enough to make those tall ship masts. That timber was used not only for the ships, but the bark of our hemlock, because prior to electricity, we did a lot of work with belts, leather belts. So we had tanneries throughout the area that tanned leather to make the leather belts necessary for industrial production. We also had chemical plants, because before the advent of the oil and gas industry and synthetics and oil and gas, we had to use wood alcohol, acetate of lime, and products that they've refined out of our wood and the bark from our trees. During that time frame, we also had the evolution of the oil industry. Drake discovered oil in Titusville, just a few miles southwest of here, and the very lands we stand on were produced during the First and Second World War for oil and gas. Timber harvesting has always been important on the Allegheny Plateau, because it's a timber harvest that is a silvicultural treatment. Silviculturists come up with a treatment to make the forest better moving forward. It's the harvest and the harvesting practice and the way that practice is done that it implements those silvicultural treatments. So without harvesting and the byproducts that come from harvesting, managing the forest for the future is almost impossible. So we need to harvest trees to manage the forest. And it's the byproduct of those harvest trees that we use as our forest products to benefit society. So they go hand in hand. Without forest management, without harvesting, you can't manage. So harvesting is part of the management implementation of the practice. So it's paramount to harvest for the betterment of the future.